For more on the importance of homeownership in the Latino community, I spoke to Gary Acosta, the co-founder and CEO of the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals.
Latinos come to the United States, first of all, for economic opportunity, and this family is the center of the Latino culture. So for all those reasons, homeownership is a very, very high priority. And it is a tangible asset that Latinos understand. And for that reason, I think Latinos are very passionate about homeownership.
There's a very dark racial history in the U.S. and obstacles faced by African Americans towards homeownership, including some institutionalized discriminatory policies. Talk about some of the obstacles that Latinos have faced and perhaps continue to face.
Well, you're talking about redlining, and there is a dark history of that has left out a major segment of our population for many years, and it's going to take a long time to rectify that. But with respect to the Latino community, I think the barriers right now are, number one, most Latinos, I think you mentioned earlier, have limited wealth, and so they're a younger population. They tend to earn a little bit less money, as younger people tend to do. And for those reasons, qualifying for a mortgage has been more difficult historically. But there's actually one additional factor, and that is Latinos are very entrepreneurial. In fact, 1 in 3 Latino families in the United States owns a small business, and self-employed individuals have had an exceptionally difficult time qualifying for mortgages recently. So I think wealth, access to credit, and then the very, very tight constraint that we have in terms of housing inventory, especially in the affordable ranges, has been the toughest obstacles to overcome.
What about some of the trends? Where are Latinos buying? Is it assimilated communities, or are they self-segregating?
Well, I think one of the reasons why Latinos have had 6 straight years of homeownership growth, which no other demographic has had in the United States, is 1, because of that passion for homeownership, 2, because of their youth and age, and they're just really aging into those prime homebuying years, and 3, because Latinos are more likely and more willing to mobilize themselves. They will go where jobs and where affordable housing tends to exist. So where you see the biggest surges in terms of homeownership growth, we tend to see it in the Midwest and in the South and some of the non-traditional markets where Latinos have gone and really have thrived historically. So we're not just in California, Texas, and Florida anymore. We're in the Midwest, we're in the South, where there are opportunities and where you can still buy a home for $200,000, $300,000.
Are they seeking out Latino communities?
I think they're creating Latino communities. There are Latino communities in markets where maybe people don't necessarily know they exist. In places like Des Moines, Iowa, and Nashville, Tennessee, but Latinos tend to go where those opportunities exist for jobs and for affordable housing. And there's a very, very tight community in terms of family and communication and extended family. So when one goes to a location, finds opportunity, finds employment opportunity, buys a home, the word gets out and other Latinos will follow. So there are emerging Latino populations happening all over the country right now.
Are Latino house hunters different than other Americans who are searching for a home, and if so, how?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. As I mentioned before, Latinos are passionate about homeownership in one respect because the family is centered to Latino culture. So they look at utility a great deal more than maybe other segments of the population. And what I mean by that is that they're more likely to like or pursue a home that has a larger yard or who has more bedrooms and more space for where the family can congregate. So from an actual property design standpoint, those tend to be priorities. Latinos tend to be less interested in condominiums and other properties where they can't experience those things.
We've talked a lot about the impact that COVID has had on minority communities, Black and Brown specifically. How has that translated this past year into Latinos trying to buy homes?
Well, I think it's actually one of the most counterintuitive factoids, and that is Latinos, no question, suffered during the pandemic, probably as much or more than any other segment of our population. But at the same time, our demand for homeownership actually surged. And trying to reconcile that has been a little bit difficult, but I think it's pretty clear that Latinos who were in the position to buy a home, in other words, had the means to buy homes, probably were less affected than some of the other individuals. Latinos are highly employed in restaurants and hospitality, and those were very hard hit during the pandemic. Obviously, those folks probably weren't buying homes, but Latinos are also growing in terms of their population in other segments of our economy, including financial services, the real estate industry in particular, construction, and so forth. So it was actually, sort of a counterintuitive thing happening at the same time. There was definitely, a challenge to the community that was significant, but at the same time, there were other segments of the Latino population that was doing exceptionally well.